I live in a mansion and it's actually haunted. No, I'm not trying to flex. I live with my parents, at least for now, as I can't afford to live on my own yet. We live here because my parents got an amazing deal from some rich African aristocrats who bought the house and then left it abandoned for 7 years. And no joke, the previous owner, the person who built the house, is one of the biggest musicians in the world. I can't say who he is because that will dox me. 1 million likes and I'll tell you. Just kidding. Jump. Yeah, that's what I thought, buddy. No, I'm not actually toxic like that. That looks like a hacker. Yeah, he's hacking. Anti-KB. Almost won that. Anyways, my parents owned the house for years without yet moving in because it needed a lot of work and they didn't want to live in a construction site. Pretty reasonable. But during this construction period, a couple years ago, my parents had a new employee stay here for some time because he's not from Georgia and he needed a place to stay before moving his whole family here. We didn't know this until after a lot of the recent events I'm going to share with you in this video, but there were multiple nights where he was absolutely sure someone was in the house with him, and he grabbed his gun and went room to room trying to find a possible intruder. But of course, never found anyone and found no break-in points. He didn't tell us about this until recently. Later, another man lived in our house during this construction period. He still lives in our house, so I got to talk to him personally about his experiences. You see, the house has what's called a mother-in-law suite. It's a completely separate part of the house meant to function independently from the rest, only connected by a single hallway upstairs. For years, he's heard repeat knocks at several specific places in the walls at specific intervals where he stays. I asked him exactly what it sounds like, and it's unmistakable for anything else. He even had pest control come out, and they confirmed there's nothing living in the attic or the walls. There's more things, but the knocks are the strangest. There's more that comes later with him. Now we fast forward to nearly a year ago. I came home from college and helped my parents move in, and then we went back to finish my fall semester. And then my spring semester, graduated college, and came home. I couldn't tell you anything that happened while I was gone, but now I've been home for nearly 6 months, and there's been a lot of things. Issues started to arise, particularly with my mom. She would have demonic dreams, wake up and feel like she's being suffocated, think she sees things in the room with her as she has sleep paralysis. I think my dad also experienced some things like this, but much less. Now, these kind of things didn't happen as much at our previous house. Sure, we did actually have some wild things happen, particularly following my older brother's death, but we didn't feel like that house was haunted by any means. We're no stranger to spiritual things as we are Christians, and whenever my parents would produce a Christian film, crazy demonic stuff would frequently happen on set to hinder the process. And I've personally known several missionaries who have witnessed miracles, possession, levitation, and more firsthand. One example is this whole missionary family in Africa got possessed, stripped naked, and ran around. The village people had to call another minister to come and cast out the demons. When the minister arrived and cast out the demons, suddenly they came to their senses and they had to return home after that as the village people couldn't respect them anymore. Returning to the present topic, over the last several months, demonic attacks have been increasing and in severity. It got to the point where we started avoiding certain rooms, like the theater room and a secret room where those things were the most frequent. I'm not making up the secret room. We have literal secret passageways, secret rooms, secret closets. It's honestly sick. Knowing the artist who built the house, we're 99% sure Diddy and others have done unholy things where we live. And this evil is the source of what's happening. At least we think so. Let's just say they knew each other. And mega artists are notorious for abusing their money and influence. We decided we need to do something to cast out the demons from the house, or at least restrain them. There's a woman whose career is to do just that. She came highly recommended as 2 families we know have experienced some actual demonic stuff, and her work supposedly got rid of it. These are people we trust, and you believe someone if they're willing to pay for it themselves and recommend it to their friends. I talked directly with one of these people about his experiences. He was describing some diabolical things he experienced when house sitting for someone else, and these things could not be explained away. One thing I can share is one night his dog became super alert, so he let him out to go to the bathroom, but his dog was just staring into the woods. He stood there, confused, and as he stood there, certain words entered his mind. I think it was something like shotgun and murder. He later brought it up, and the owners asked the previous owners, and it turns out there was a shotgun murder on the property. And this dude is like me, where he's super skeptical about everything and tries to explain anything supernatural away before it accepting as such. Anyways, my parents paid too much money for this woman who cleansed that house to come to our house and do her thing. Before she came, we talked to a woman at her church who is very knowledgeable in matters of spiritual warfare. Let's just say demonic activity is like a Tuesday stroll to her because she grew up witnessing it. And with being a missionary for many years, it was commonplace. You see, if you're from the West, like North America or Europe, you're far less likely to experience demonic activity. In other parts of the world, the spiritual realm is a given. The prevailing theory among Christians is that demons act in more subversive ways in Western countries because they don't want to disrupt our prevailing naturalistic perspective. Otherwise, we're more likely to turn to God, which obviously they don't want as they're servants of the Satan. In the West, you ask someone about God, and the argument is if God exists. You go to India, Africa, East Asia, South America, the prevailing argument is which God to follow. Yes, this isn't ubiquitous as many East Asian countries are westernizing at a rapid pace as a result of technology. So spiritual affairs are decreasing in some East Asian countries. One of my professors from my college, who's extremely well studied and has influenced thousands of people in probably over 100 countries throughout his life, pointed out in a class that when he goes to India to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, after he tells them about Jesus being God, they don't question it for a second. Rather, they want to know how powerful he is compared to their gods. So the hurdle isn't convincing them of God's existence, but of Jesus being Lord of all. Coming back to the woman from my church, she actually warned against the woman my parents paid to come to our house to cast out the demons, and we probably should have listened. I'll get to why in a minute. At the scheduled date and time, she arrived. She's an older woman, heavy set enough she needed assistance walking. She brought her husband and daughter to help her do her thing. They brought in a box with some supplies. Before they started, as they arrived early, I asked them a number of questions. It became quickly clear they're not exactly Christians. She had more of an eclectic approach to her job, meaning Christianity is just one of the tools in her proverbial tool belt. This became glaringly clear when she was talking about elemental spirits, ghosts, and some things that don't match up with Christianity. It sounded more like the power system in the show Jujutsu Kaisen than anything else. Sure, the Bible doesn't explain the whole power system. It doesn't tell you what you want to know, but rather what you need to know. So there's a lot of gray area and active debate about the spiritual realm and spiritual beings, as it doesn't even try to explain much, but references it like you know already. So I can't say with confidence she's wrong about things, but drawing from outside sources tells me her beliefs don't really match up with ours, which is an actual issue. The Bible adamantly warns against seeking out seers, sorcerers, and mediums, not because they're hoaxes, but because they could be relying on demonic power. So we don't want someone fighting fire with fire. But I didn't say anything, and we let her do her thing. My parents already paid all the money after all, and I don't own the house. First, they pulled out this incense thing. I'll put a picture on screen that I snuck while they were out of the room so you can see it. Then the husband worked on lighting it and getting it smoking, which took a while. I asked what incense they're using, and the answer I got is, it's just a mix of some biblical stuff, like frankincense and myrrh. Once it was smoking, they went around the house trying to saturate every room with this smoke, literally trying to smoke out the entities, as they called them. We said nothing about the artist who built the house and what probably went on, but she said she sensed some residue from evil that went on in the house, like non-consensual sexual activity, which matches up with what most likely happened. Going from room to room, the goal is to saturate the room with smoke, and if it dissipates before that happens, then she claimed that it meant there's significant evil energy and they needed extra time to cleanse the room, or so-called residue. While they were doing their thing, I had to leave to take my brother to the airport so he could go back to college. As you can see in the picture I took of his phone, my mom texted that the smoke kept disappearing over my brother's bed. Of course, I'm skeptical because I don't know if this strat is just a load of garbage, but it checks out because my brother has a lot of trouble sleeping in that bed, and that's all I'll say on that. And in the secret room where the first dude experienced things, it was particularly hard for the smoke to stay, even though there's practically no ventilation, so you'd expect the opposite. So this checks out, and is honestly another point for the eclectic woman's method for many reasons, some of which I cannot tell you because I promised not to. Lastly, the theater room, which we avoided, also checked out, as the smoke practically refused to stay. And every other room, for the most part, was normal, because she came highly recommended, and her husband and daughter clearly believed in what they were doing. I don't think she conned us, but I'm cautious, and there's more to the story. When I got home from the airport, they were still there, and actively putting up crystals above the doorways, windows, and even computer screens where demons can supposedly enter. Yes, crystals. I'll switch to my camera so you can see it real quick. Excuse the lighting. I suppose the idea is that this somehow blocks spirits or demons from entering the house, I guess? Well, it definitely did not do its job. Because after a brief calm for a few days, things got significantly worse. The man who lives with us woke up being choked. Another dude who's recently also living with us had a negative experience of his own, although not as bad. And the demonic activity did not stop with my mom, so she had to take steps to try to prevent it at night. We then called an ordained pastor, who we know as Bishop Franklin, whom my dad has known for a long time. I can say his name because there are tons of Bishop Franklins. He came to the house a while later and prayed through each room and continues to pray for us in the house frequently. That was a few weeks ago, and not much abnormal stuff has happened since then. I don't know if the problem has gone away. I, like many other Westerners who are overly logic-centered, have experienced almost no first-hand supernatural things that I can't just explain away. But I have seen, and I know too much to be ignorant of the spiritual realm. This video doesn't even scratch the surface. And that's basically the story. I could make up a climactic ending, but I'm not making this stuff up, and I particularly wouldn't lie about something that's so important and not taken seriously in the West. There's probably more to the story, but this is all that I remember off the top of my head. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is we have 2 garages, and while I'm the only one who parks in the lower garage, on 3 separate occasions, the garage door randomly opened seemingly on its own during the night or while I was away from the house. But that could be explained away by a neighbor's garage door opener somehow opening mine, or some other mundane explanation like wiring issues, but it happened 3 times in a week. Anyways, I have many more stories to tell you. I might make more of these storytime videos if you ask me to in the comments, and subscribe.